Hi everybody and welcome to Heel Heat. My name is George Coles, and on this episode we're walking in Memphis. Topic of this Walking in Memphis, CWA Wrestling from June 12th, 1988. Now before we get into the review, if you haven't seen my shows before, I rate everything on a 1 to 5 scale, 1 being the worst, 5 being the best. For Walking in Memphis, we consider it segment to segment, basically commercial break to commercial break. If you want to watch the video that I reviewed for this, there will be a link right here in the description. With that being said, let's jump right in. We start the show off with the Blue Knight versus Sean Baxter. And Baxter's a guy I don't remember at all. He kind of has a look like he should be the guitarist for Poison or Winger or maybe even Bon Jovi, who will come up later in the show. But he has that very 80s hair metal look with the teased bleach blonde hair and the basically Rock and Roll Express type gear. He picks up the win here. Afterwards, Robert Fuller comes out, tries to recruit him. Then he brings out his stud stable, which includes Don Bass and Gary Young and Miss Sylvia, who's the valet for the stable. Baxter turns him down. They jump him. Basically, we've seen the same trope a million times. Overall, I thought this was decent. Okay way to start the show. I'm giving this a 3. Next up, we get a match with the CWA World Champion, Brickhouse Brown, or CWA Champion, it wasn't the World Championship, defending against Tommy King. Obviously, this was a squash match. Brickhouse picks up an easy win here. After that, we go into a video hyping up Curt Hennig, who will have a return match for the AWA World Championship that Jerry Lawler recently beat him for. The video is set to Mick Jagger's Lonely at the Top, which is kind of interesting. A lot of these that we review is kind of hit or miss if they have the music in here when they show these highlight videos, or if they even cut the segment altogether for copyright reasons. The only thing I could think of as to why is maybe because this isn't as popular as some of Mick Jagger's other songs. And again, we'll talk about the other song they play a little bit later. But it was a cool little video here. For this segment, I'm giving this a 4. After the break, we come back to a video with Brickhouse Brown versus Bill Dundee. Dundee picks up the win by hitting Brickhouse with a chain, and it's found out he has a chain. Max Payne gets involved. The stud stable gets involved. Again, furthering storylines, showing why these people are at odds with each other. That leads us right into a tag team match with Ron Bass and Gary Young representing the stud stable, going up against Tom Brandi and Max Payne. This is a pretty good match. They focused on Max Payne's injury, which came from the video we seen just before it. Ultimately, Brandi and Payne pick up the win when Brickhouse Brown comes and gets involved in the match, thus disqualifying the heels. That brings out Sean Baxter, who we've already seen in the beginning of the show, has been set up to feud with the stud stable. So pretty good here. Continuing feuds. Brickhouse Brown had won the championship from Max Payne. We seen earlier in the night where Baxter was jumped by the stud stable, so continuing that on. That was pretty cool to keep that going. For this segment, I'm giving this a 4. Next up, we have an interview with a guy named Kent from a Toyota dealership locally, who's promising that if Jerry Lawler doesn't win the rematch against Curt Hennig, that he'll give refunds on all the tickets. That brings out Curt Hennig, who attacks the guy named Kent, then is basically calling out Jerry Lawler. In the process, he says, if you don't come out, I'm going to destroy the set, which he destroys the set, tips over the table, pulls down the back wall, all that fun stuff. Lawler still doesn't come out, so he grabs Lance Russell and he says, you and Lawler are friends, let's see how good of friends you are. I'm going to count to 10. If Lawler doesn't arrive, I'm going to beat you up. He starts counting. Lawler comes out. As soon as Lawler comes out, he's held back by Tom Bass and Gary Young, the stud stable, basically setting up so Hennig could go over and kick them. I thought this was really good. I enjoyed this. Curt Hennig was on fire here. I'm giving this a 5. Next up, we get an interview with Tojo Yamamoto, who has his new tag team of the Great Senshi and Jeff Jarrett. Before he could start, he's interrupted by Eddie Marlin, who basically comes out and threatens Hennig and explains to him that Lawler's going to keep going. Then we go into their interview, which leads us right into a match with Senshi, the Great Senshi, and Jeff Jarrett versus Rough and Ready. This will be a 2 out of 3 falls match. Senshi and Jarrett pick up the first fall. Then we get a promo from Robert Fuller and Miss Sylvia, introducing a manager into the stud stable, downtown Bruno. All this is pretty good. I'm giving this whole segment a 4. I thought it was all good stuff here. Coming back, we get the second fall of the 2 out of 3 falls match. Great Senshai and Jeff Jarrett going up against Rough and Ruddy again. Senshai and Jarrett pick up the win pretty quickly here. Again, giving them 2 out of 3, basically winning 2 straight, which is kind of cool because more often than not, we don't see the 2 out of 3 falls match finishing on the show. They run out of TV time. That's followed up with a promo by Lawler, who's talking about Curt Hennig, and that leads us right into a highlight video of the Lawler and Hennig World Championship match where Lawler won the title, and that's set to Bon Jovi's King of the Mountain, which, again, much like the Mick Jagger song, not one of Bon Jovi's famous songs. It's not one of Dead or Alive or Bad Medicine or any of their mega hits that they had, but it is a good song. If you like Bon Jovi, it's a really good kind of hidden gem song of theirs. For that whole thing, I'm giving that a 5. Again, anytime you get to hear Lawler talking and you get videos of what was a really great match, it's a plus. All in all, I thought the show was pretty good from beginning to end. Everything was either pressing on an angle, starting a new angle. They gave video to explain why angles were happening. They did interviews to keep the angles going. If I was a new fan and this was the first time I turned the show on, I would know right away who was at odds with who, why they were at odds with each other. A very awesome way to keep it self-explanatory, which is what I'd like to see more in wrestling. I'd like to see it where they don't necessarily insult the week-to-week fans, which you didn't here, but you get the new fans up to speed every time they tune in, because every new show gives a new opportunity for new fans to show, for new fans to turn into. So showing little packages, having interviews, explaining what happened while putting forward the storyline helps with that. Again, all in all, I thought this was a really good show. I'm going to give it a 5. I thought it was that good. I really highly recommend this one. With all that being said, let's smash that like button, share the video, subscribe if you haven't, and if you see that button that says join, that's how you become a channel member. And if you made it all the way to the end, let's put Mr. Perfect in the comments for Curt Hennig. One of the great wrestlers of all time. One of the guys that should have got more than what he did, even though he had a legendary Hall of Fame career. He probably deserved more than he even got. So let's give him a shout out in the comments. My name is George Coles, and we've been walking in Memphis.